Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
The FAA is at a crossroads. A new administrator is stepping in just as the agency faces a wave of early retirements, aging technology, and mounting concerns from Congress. Behind the headlines are the people who keep the system running, often under enormous strain. Here to talk about what's driving the departures, how it's affecting safety and morale, and what kind of leadership the moment demands is the Executive Director of the Federal Aviation Administration Managers Association, Ron Aretano. Ron, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Terry. It's a pleasure to be here.
Let's start with the good news from FAA's perspective. You have a newly confirmed head of the agency, Brian Bedford. What are your hopes as the lead of the FAA Managers Association to work with the new administrator?
Well, we're excited to have Mr. Bedford confirmed. Frankly, we're excited to have any administrator confirmed. We've gone a long time without a permanent administrator, off and on over the last couple years. And Mr. Bedford comes with a ton of experience in the aviation industry. We were excited with what he had to say during his confirmation hearings. And we think he brings a breath of fresh air to the industry and to our agency at a time when I think we need some creative thinking and to tackle a number of challenges, as everyone's seen in the news lately.
What has he said are going to be his priorities for the FAA?
I think first and foremost, it's addressing a lot of the infrastructure needs that exist throughout the system. I mean, not a day seems to go by these days where we don't hear about a concern here, an incident there of just outdated and antiquated systems, not meeting the challenge of today's aviation requirements. And I think the second part of it is on the staffing level. The FAA managers, just some background, FAMA's been around for over 40 years in different capacities, and we've always focused on staffing. Staffing's always been a big need for us. We're comprised of about 1,500 managers and supervisors within the FAA, a non-bargaining unit, and I can tell you this, we've always struggled with having enough to meet our numbers, predominantly because you don't become a manager till you're older in life, and there's a mandatory retirement requirement of age 56, so it had some challenges, and so we're grateful to see that Mr. Bedford and others are focusing on how do we address these staffing concerns.
Let's dig in a little bit on staffing, because we've heard that about 2,700 FAA employees took the early departure option offered under the Trump administration. Can you help us understand who those people were and what impact their vacancies will have on the agency?
Absolutely, Terry, and I'll do my best. I mean, we're not privy to all the who took and who didn't take. I mean, clearly that's up at the administrator level in the Secretary of Transportation. That being said, I mean, I can say that a lot of the folks who do air traffic, which is the biggest concern on staffing, none of them really took the offer. They weren't allowed to take the offer. I mean, we need to maintain the numbers we have. So a lot of them were support staff, and some at the highest leadership within the FAA, I'm aware of, took the offer. That being said, most of our membership were not even given the offer, again, because most of our 85% of our members are in air traffic, and they handle, landing planes every day. So given the stressors that exist out there, I think it's good that most of them stayed on board. That being said, I do want to note that those support staff serve a key role as well. So I know a lot of our members were sad to see some of them take that early retirement. You can't underestimate how important a role they play in just doing the little things around a tower, around a center, around all the air traffic aviation facilities that exist out there.
Many of them, at least by the numbers, were in aviation safety, technicians, quality assurance specialists, and engineers. So not having that kind of support on the background, what does that mean for the folks who are still on the job?
Yeah, it's a concern, no doubt. I mean, I won't lie to you there, Terry. It is a concern for our members, and it's something that we're tracking closely, and that's why trying to replace them as soon as possible. But, bringing in someone fresh off the street, it takes years to get the institutional knowledge that you need to perform a very technical functions in some sense and safety functions in a lot of sense. So it's a concern. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, and I think we need to we're hopeful that, the administration working with Congress can try to fill some of those holes as quickly as possible.
And the FAA says it wants to hire 2,000 additional air traffic controllers, and training an air traffic controller is, again, not someone that you just pick up off the street. How will that work?
It's gonna take some time, and I think everyone needs to be patient, frankly, and our folks do the training. The managers and supervisors are the ones doing the training. A lot of our folks are at the academy in Oklahoma City performing that training, but also out in the field. They're the ones doing the daily training training, which is probably the most important because that's when you're really starting to focus on air traffic and how you manage that traffic. It's going to be a challenge, and I guess just preaching patience, but getting more people in the pipeline is a great first step. But we do need to continue to support our managers and supervisors as they train those folks.
And how's the incentive package for hiring them?
I mean, I think, for our members, since we are managers and supervisors that have been in the system for a while, it's a little different. We don't typically hire managers and supervisors off the street. Those air traffic controllers eventually become them. So again, I think they've seen some record numbers and numbers of controllers they've brought on in the last couple of months, which is a good sign. But again, it takes, just to give you an idea, 5 to 10 years for a controller to get to the point where they're a manager or supervisor overseeing, larger facilities around the country.
I'm speaking with Ron Aretano. He's the executive director of the Federal Aviation Administration Managers Association. Well, Ron, we could keep talking about personnel. There's so much I want to know and probably so much you want to talk about, but we're going to switch topics to what you already mentioned as well, technology. The FAA's air traffic control system has been designated for replacement for decades. What is the status of technology replacement and elimination of the tech debt in FAA?
It's been a lingering problem, as you know, Terry, for many, many years. There was a lot of talk about next gen, which went on for the better part of 2 decades. And progress was made despite, press reports. I think there were some advancements. There's a number of facilities that have seen those improvements. But we've got the largest air traffic control system in the world, and it takes time and takes money. And, you can't discount the interruptions in funding that occur regularly at the federal level due to congressional dysfunction at times. Shutdowns, government shutdowns never help. Every time you shut down, it slows the process to a halt and takes months and months to get started again. We're glad to see some of the investments that were made in the recent reconciliation bill that passed Congress. There was about $12.5 billion included, and that was really geared towards focusing on a lot of those infrastructure shortfalls. Now, is it close to what we need? Probably not, and I think Secretary Duffy, Administrator Bedford, and key leaders in Congress acknowledged that already, and they're talking about additional measures forthcoming to kind of further bump up that investment in the infrastructure.
Well, certainly recent incidents at Newark and at DCA brought the spotlight to those kinds of technical issues. What kind of response did you hear from Congress about that and the funding that might come along with it?
I think, it's sad that it takes tragedies and dysfunction to public eye to bring those issues to light, but most of the reactions we've got from Congress on both sides of the aisle and obviously from the administration have been positive in trying to find a solution. Sometimes it's just not a solution that can come overnight. It's going to take time. It's going to take investment. It's going to take patience and working with folks and not looking for a quick fix, because this, again, it's the largest air traffic system in the world. And, we neglected a lot of those technology and infrastructure updates that have been needed for decades. And, a lot of it, again, was just to the interruptions in funding.
Well, you mentioned that we have the largest air traffic control system in the world, but other nations fly into our airspace and we fly out. So how do you make sure that the air traffic control and the guidance systems meet international interoperability?
It is always a challenge, Terry, especially because they've updated. Some of those countries have updated their systems. They have different systems. But, I will say this, the international aviation community works very closely together. I mean, they seem to discuss these issues regularly. Anytime there are changes in systems, changes in staffing and whatnot, there is a lot of conversations that go on. So I don't think that's as much of a challenge, frankly, as, what's going on internally.
Back to Congress's interest, members of Congress have recently sent a letter to Administrator Bedford asking a lot of questions. Are you working with those members and with the FAA to help answer those questions?
Absolutely. FAMA, the FAA Managers Association, we interact regularly with Congress, leaders of the key committees that have oversight, predominantly the House Transportation Infrastructure Committee and the Senate Commerce Committee, and work with the staff and the members there to, provide our input, and also regularly interact with our leadership within the FAA, particularly the ATO, the Air Traffic Organization. They ask for a lot of suggestions, feedback, whatnot, of what's going on out in the field from our members, and we're, regularly providing that feedback.
A lot of their questions dealt with safety data, but one of them is about how the FAA is using AI to get a better handle on its safety performance. Can you tell us more about that?
Honestly, Terry, I am not as privy to some of those conversations internally. I mean, I know AI, like every aspect of our society these days, is playing a much more prominent role. And, I feel like it comes up at every congressional hearing on aviation these days. And I don't think FAMA is always a forward-thinking organization. We're supportive of anything that can help improve, our members' ability to do their jobs and, most importantly, remain the safest airspace in the world.
I've been speaking with Ron Aretano. He's the Executive Director of the Federal Aviation Administration Managers Association. Ron, thank you so much for your work. We all fly. We all care deeply about how safe the airspace is.
Thanks, Terry. Really appreciate it.
We'll post this interview at federalnewsnetwork.com/Federal Drive. Subscribe to the Federal Drive wherever you get your podcasts.